Good evening, Galion, and welcome to Facebook Live. This is Mayor Tom O'Leary here again on the Monday before City Council meetings. I think that's what we're going to go with as far as the schedule. As far as this week's council meeting, there's really not a whole lot of exciting items. There's really nothing new on the agenda except a small appropriation item. But for the most part, the rest of the council agenda will be what are known as second readings on two pieces of legislation, one involving the schools, and kind of moving that along in terms of combining some parcels and putting the real estate in that school campus under instead of many lots, under just a handful of lots. So, that's really not much going on with council or for tomorrow night. I did want to spend a little bit of time, and we'll continue to talk about this, I have a feeling, over the balance of 18. And quite honestly, people in the community will be discussing Brant Road and 598 until it's been improved. And so I want to spend a few minutes talking. Late last week, met with an engineering firm that is going to submit a couple applications on behalf of the city, seeking engineering funds to get a design for what I would call the 598 corridor project, or the North Corridor, and then also get us in the pipeline so that we can get some funding to actually accomplish the project. It's really the first time that I had a chance to see an estimate that I would consider having some level of refinement and study put in it. And it really is it could be as much as an $8 million project. Interestingly, there is a lot of real estate acquisition. There are nearly 50 parcels that would be impacted as you went about putting a third lane from roughly Arby's north out to the location of the new Valero store. So, although most of those real estate acquisitions are what are called temporary takes, that they're needed during construction, it will add some time and unfortunately, at least from a planning perspective, some cost to the project. So while I'm the kind of person who would like to design and build the project as soon as possible, it looks mostly because of the access points and temporary right-of-way that would be needed, that we're probably looking at a project that may take as many as 3 or 4 years to actually get in the ground, get it completed. So the first step was applying for funds and getting Galion in line in a couple of particular funding programs that are operated for small communities like Galion. So that's really where we're at. There was also, along the same lines and the same topic, there was a little bit of exchange on social media about the safety out there on Brant Road and 598, which caused our office staff here to access a pretty nifty and easy to access program that one can find on the Department of Transportation website. It's called a Transportation Information Mapping System, or TIMS. And so you create a login and get on there. Anyone who is proficient in working with websites would have little or no trouble. If you had trouble and wanted to see the maps, I'd encourage you to come up to City Hall. But what it does is it graphically shows all the accidents that have taken place in that corridor going back to 2014. So it gives us a year-by-year listing and then an aggregate listing of where the accident occurs. And if you actually go online and look at it, it's pretty neat in the sense that when you click on one of the bubbles on this TIM system, it will pull up the accident report. So there's a color coding that will tell you, once you're familiar with it, something that we already know, that most of the accidents out there in that corridor are rear enders. But I guess one thing that I'm struck by is over a 4-year period, there are quite a few accidents. There's a lot of dots on the map. But each year in the map from 15, 14, 16, those each year. So although I was a little bit skeptical about why we didn't qualify for a light, I think once I saw it graphically, the number of accidents, I realized that really the perception and the patience that people have, the perception of it being risky, and then people's impatience actually pulling out or trying to get across or through the intersection, I think are really what's bothering people and what's causing the controversy. Having said that, I think it's time to get moving on it, and that's why we had the engineering firm get about applying on behalf of the city of Galion and see if we can't get some safety money to study the project, then some additional safety money from ODOT to construct some of the project and get this thing moving over the next several years. So that's a topic that's been in the internet, it's been on our Facebook site and our city website, and so I wanted to address it. It's Transportation Information Mapping System for those people who are real hands-on learners or people who may be skeptical about the amount of accidents and the history and the kinds of accidents that are out there. So there's a couple items on traffic safety and a little bit longer planning horizon in getting this project, this widening of 598 accomplished. But it may turn out that we do a little bit of widening as we move along, as additional development happens, as we're working on the overall project, the overall widening and intersection improvement. So, major project going on in the community. It's going to take a while to make it happen. Again, it's remarkable, I think, and surprises me how every year the weather and the lack of cold weather, or the ability of contractors to work through the winter, I guess I'm never ceased to be amazed. And so we have two construction projects going on that are really for late February, moving along pretty well. The long-awaited Duke Station or Duchess Shop project is well on its way, and then out on 598 in the area that I was just discussing the need for widening, you can begin to see the Bell store taking shape, and if you are a passenger in a car and watch as you go by, you can see just the outline of the new Dairy Queen. So those kinds of things are small steps forward, but I think we've talked about them in the community for a while. It's great to see them begin to take shape. So those are I guess all 598 and development-related topics, but there's certainly other things going on. If there's some questions out there tonight, we'll hit those. And then I have a couple other items to talk about generally if we have time.
Sure. Mayor, the first question that we had come through was from Quentin. And it's a statement and a question. I'm a parent and my family loves to go to the splash park. Myself and some other parents would like to volunteer to help with cost and possibly extend hours. Would this work?
I guess yes, it would. I think one of the things that we want to try and do is it's not really been a cost issue, Quentin, in terms of being able to having it be affordable and justifiable. What we do is in our contract with the YMCA that as the operator of the Heisey Park pool, they also provide the staffing there. I think what we want to do this year, but having said that, if there's a way we can get volunteers to sort of qualify themselves and sign up for a schedule so that we can have additional folks there, I think that makes it's a good suggestion. And each summer that it's been open, as we've talked about the hours, we've realized that we do close a little bit early. Particularly for working families, they get off, they get cleaned up, and they really only have an hour or so until we shut down. So the idea of evening hours, I think, makes a lot of sense. It's a good suggestion, and we'll take it under advisement and find some ways that we can bring in some help to add hours without adding costs. The other thing that's going to happen this year, if you're out there with your family, you know that shade is in short supply. So we have been looking at some solutions for picnic tables with umbrellas and shades, and are trying to make some decisions as to whether we buy something that is nice, a nice retail, probably good for a summer or two type umbrella, and and picnic tables, or purchase more permanent equipment and expect to have those assets, those additions and add-ons to the splash park last 5-10 years. Last thing I would want to say about if you like the splash park, we're really also beginning to look at making some additions. When the project was built, it was built in a way that you could add a few more play features. And one of the things that we're looking at in our overall parks budget is whether or not it would be a good time to add a small play feature or two to add to the fun. And as the popularity of it grows, we don't want to create lines for young kids. We want to try to keep them busy and having fun. So there's a little bit more than Quentin asked about the splash park, but it's really, this will be our third year, and I'm really very, very excited about what will happen with some more shade and some more opportunities for longer hours, as was suggested.
At this point, we don't have any other questions, Mayor.
Yeah. Well, what I would like to do is just take a minute and just to open up a topic that I think you'll hear more about as the year goes on, and that is the need to develop more housing. When you talk with people, young families, you talk to people involved in real estate, or anybody who is, they don't have to be young families necessarily, people looking to move to Galion, one of the things that I hear almost every day is comments about a shortage of housing. And we certainly have some older homes that can be renovated successfully and make nice family homes. It seems to me that there's a growing mismatch between what potential Galionites, people who would like to find a home and move to Galion, or people who live here would like to move up in terms of their housing situation, and the absence, those desires in the absence of any subdivisions or any housing. So have been meeting with some builders and had some initial conversations with real estate and banking officials, and I think what the plan would be is to identify a handful of parcels that are readily available, developable, if you will, and begin to really talk with the owners of those properties about ways that the community can share risk with them and begin to get some infrastructure in so that that new homes can be built on more than a one home at a time basis. So one of the things that encourages I think this kind of development, and then that caused me to be optimistic about it, is the potential for that development is the community reinvestment area tax incentives that were put in place last year. And those tax incentives can provide a pretty significant reduction in a home buyer's monthly payment by virtue of the fact that their taxes would be reduced significantly. So what we're talking about are annual incentives in the $2,500, $3,000 range, and that would probably need to be up for negotiation, but could be available for up to 10 years. So those are, I think, pretty big incentives when you're looking at $30,000 over a 10-year period on a $120,000, $150,000 home. So in terms of new housing, real excited about that. And as interest gets going in terms of housing tax credits and what they can mean for rehabilitation of housing, we'll be happy to talk about that and begin to try to use various media outlets to get the word out about housing tax credits and about how Galion is very interested in growing our housing base, and that we've made a lot of steps forward in terms of eliminating tap fees and capacity fees and really reducing the initial cost of putting housing in Galion. So I think what I'm looking forward to is getting the word out on that topic and beginning to get various builders and home buyers and lenders all beginning to think about what it would be like to see Galion growing again. So that's one of our goals for 2018, and something that I feel is long overdue in this community, is a new tract of homes in various income ranges or in various mortgage ranges. So I think that's something that Galion needs now, and if you talk to people in the school or in the real estate market, you're finding that there's interest in moving into the school district and moving into the community, but there's really a gap or a lack of available housing. So without droning on and on about it, I'm excited about it and really want to try to get the necessary folks involved. So,
Mayor, we had another question come in. This one's from Shauna. Any hopes of getting the area across from Caleb's ice cream cleaned up?
Yeah, there's sure the property across the East Street, the old car wash, and then the property just to the north of that, the car dealership used to be a restaurant. Those areas have different owners. I think it's a matter of enforcement. I cleaned up as in easier to look at. Yeah, I think, and we'll continue to do enforcement on that. Cleaned up and reused, I'm probably less optimistic about that. I believe that the property, my understanding, was bought for future development purposes, but it has sat there in a neglected state. And quite honestly, commercial properties and the condition of various commercial properties around town is going to be something we're going to have to step up enforcement and hope that City Council is behind administration efforts to try to clean up some of these abandoned commercial properties around town.
That's the last question that we have for the evening at this point.
All right. Well, I would encourage anyone to come to tomorrow night's council meeting. If you want one that doesn't have a action-packed agenda, that would be a good one to pick. But I think it's also real important that people get involved in their city council, city affairs generally, and as well as the school board. So I want to thank everyone for watching tonight and the few questions that we've had. And hopefully this issue of Brant Road widening, it's a major project. It's going to take a few years to put it together, but my hope is that we can move that along as expeditiously as possible. And we're going to have to use data, and our concerns are going to have to be supplied by local funding and good accident history and accident data to secure multi-million-dollar funding for Galion through the state of Ohio. So I guess that's mostly what we have tonight. Look forward to talking to anyone over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you sometime in early March. Good night.